Welcome to Merchant Seeds Cup of Joe. On this episode, Area Sales Manager Aaron Harpole joins us in Cairo, Illinois with Adam Thomas at his field. Hear what's happening to the soybean fields in the bottom ground of southern Illinois and why it's detrimental being located across the river from the Bootheel of Missouri. It's fungicide time. Ben talks about why it's critical to make sure you're at R3 in soybeans when spraying fungicide.
Hi, this is Joe Mershman. Welcome to Merchant Seeds Cup of Joe. Today we have our regulars, Turk and Ben, and some special guests. We have Aaron Harpole from Fancy Farm, Kentucky. He's our area sales manager. And also one of his customers, Adam Thomas from just north of Cairo, Illinois. And we're going to talk today about some of the problems that we're seeing that really are making us scratch our head when it comes to dicamba damage and what we're seeing on Enlist E3 soybeans. And so I'm going to turn this discussion over to Aaron to start with and just describe where you're at, where you're located, and what's going on. And then Adam, I need you to come in and talk about the situation, because this is the most bizarre, most extreme situation that we've seen ever on dicamba damage. And I just think that folks need to understand how trying to tame this wild teenager, dicamba, which we don't know what it's going to do or where it's going to go, is just about an impossibility. So, Aaron, give us some background on what's going on.
Well, we're standing here, just like you said, just north of Cairo, Illinois, in a field of Adams. As you can see, this is an extend-flex field. This is an enlist field planted 2 days apart. This field's been showing damage, what do you say, a month?
Yes.
It's just been hot and dry, so it's hadn't really tried to come out of it. And we're seeing this dicamba drift miles. It's probably the past couple of years it's been like this, but growing conditions have helped. This year we've been extremely dry and hot, and that's making it worse as far as prolonged damage.
I understand exactly what you're saying. It's just like when a human is sick, they tell you drink plenty of water, to kind of flush it out of your system. You're just not getting the water, so you're just getting pronounced damage that's just not growing out of it because the soybeans aren't growing.
Correct.
So where do you think that dicamba damage came from, Adam? Tell us a little bit about your neighbors and their practices, and a little bit of, what do you think?
Well, right here we're located. We're about a mile from the Mississippi River. A lot of this drift is coming out of Missouri. Everyone in this area that has planted extend flex beans are only spraying with Liberty to help their neighbors out. Everyone else is planting Enlist. What's going on is when everybody comes to do post-emerge spraying all over, you have the entire Bootheel of Missouri spray all at once within a week or two. We believe that when that dicamba vaporizes, it goes into the air. It begins to move north due to seasonal southerly breezes. And whether it is a rainfall or whether it is a atmospheric conversion where you have a very large patch of fog, it can get into that and settle down. And that's when you have lots of damage, lots of cupping, mixed with hot weather this time of year. You'll have beans that just can't get out of it. And some will get out of it with rainfall, some can't. It just depends on, the prolonged drought that we're having. If it doesn't rain, they're not going to get out. And sometimes when it does rain, they get another dose of it.
So how far away would you say that you think this dicamba came from?
You're looking at the river being a mile away, compensating for bottom ground. You're probably looking at 2 to 3 miles. Now, me personally, I farm in Alexander County and Pulaski County. Pulaski County is about where my farm there is about 25 miles north of here. I have damage there. In that area, there is no extend being sprayed. And there is some damage. Not as extensive as right here, but 25 miles north, there is dicamba damage. And there's no one around there that's spraying it. That's how far.
If you were talking to the regulators in the EPA, what would be your message to them?
Well, since we're on camera, I'll make it, decent. But my recommendations, if they're not going to outright make it illegal to use, we have to have a cutoff date, June 1st. The state of Illinois, our cutoff date was June 20th. And that's not enough in my mind, but across the river, Missouri's going off of the federal date, which is July the 1st. So if you can spray July the 1st, you're going to see drift 14 days after that. So if your beans look good on July 13th, they're not going to look good July 14th at the very least.
So that field that you're standing in front of, Adam, how uniform is the cupping? I mean, is it just as bad at the other end of the field as it is where you're standing?
The entire field here to my right is enlist beans. It's 160 acres. It is cupped the best you can see in the video. It's cupped the exact same here as it is all the way across. The exact same. There's no less or more. The closer to the road you get, it worse. That's not the case. The farther away you get, worse. Not the case. The whole thing is uniform. In other words, it's not from spraying out of a spray rig. It is drift. It's hitting it all at the same time. So they're planted 2 days apart. This is obviously the extend beans. This is what that field should look like. So that's what you're working with.
It's very frustrating, and you know what? We're just as frustrated as you are, and we're going to make as much noise or show people what's going on in the real world and how we, quite frankly, can't coexist with the current rules. We just, quite frankly, cannot coexist, and something has to change.
Yeah, and the icing on the cake before we even started filming this is all of you guys have banded together. How many acres did you say is in that bottom? Or how many acres of...
There's 15,000 acres of enlist soybeans, and every single plant is affected.
Yep, so your neighbors got together. They're either planting Enlist or they're spraying Liberty, and the neighbors got together. I guess what's really frustrating to me is everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing. You don't want to hurt your neighbor in your guys' situation. Nobody's going out and blatantly spraying Dicamba. It's one of those deals where every field, conversations farmers have had back and forth with each other on, okay, what are you doing? How can we prevent this from happening? Well, now we're sitting in a situation where all that you have to do, the picture speaks 1,000 words. I mean, that's what you're dealing with.
I do. Turk, you have any other questions?
No, I think this is excellent to look at. It shows it perfectly what we're talking about, and hopefully we can get some rain down there and help you your beans start to recover, because if it doesn't, it's going to have a major effect on your yields.
Indeed.
Adam, we appreciate you coming on and talking about your problem, and we will distribute this video to as many people as that will listen and watch it. And Aaron, thanks for bringing this to our attention, because this was a major topic of discussion this week at Mershman Seeds at our sales meeting, and what we can do and how we can change this. And we're going to do everything in our power to make people aware that the changes in the label are not working, and we need to change something needs to change, because we cannot coexist the way things are right now.
So, greatly appreciated, Joe. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys.
You bet. Well, pretty serious damage, and it's good report. This will make people aware of the problems that we're running into, and hopefully get some changes made. So, Ben, what else do you have today?
We're in that time frame where staging soybeans for fungicide is starting to happen. When a lot of growers ask what R3 looks like, R3 is where there's a pod that's 3/16 of an inch at the top 3 to 4 most upper nodes on that plant. And I think a lot of guys don't have a tape measure with them in their truck because they have a tendency to weight towards that more full pod, or the spraying conditions aren't correct to get it done. But I think there's a major advantage to getting the R3 correctly timed and sprayed with a fungicide. Universities have done R2 testing and R4 testing, and there's a huge difference. When a university finds a statistically significant difference between the different time frames of spraying,
it means something. And I think it's even more than that when it's out in the field. So 3/16 of an inch, when you see those little pods that basically the flower has turned brown and they're just a little bit bigger than that first onset when the flowers turn brown, that's what I'm calling my R3. And why, in my brain, why does that R3, why is that time such an important critical time is there's some plant health benefits that come with the strobilurin class of chemistry. That lowers ethylene levels. We've talked about it before. And when we reduce the stress in that plant, it allows for more flower and pod retention. So you're going to continue to have flowers coming on that plant in the upper portion of the upper portion in the canopy, but in the lower portion you're going to have a little bit bigger pods. So the Cool Bean does an awesome job. They have great pictures of showing what the bottom of the plant looks like at R3 versus the top of the plant, and you already have a little bit of pod development down there. So what you're doing is when 80% of the soybean yield comes from the middle 12 to 14 inches of that plant, you are retaining the huge percentage of what that plant's yield is by lowering the stress levels. You are keeping higher pod retention, higher flower retention, and you're getting the added benefit of whatever the triazole and the fungicide efficacy portion of stuff as well, because you're protecting those leaves that are contributing to 80 to 85% of your yield factor there.
So the pods are going to abort. You're going to see pods abort. What percent of the pods actually are going to abort? That 12 to 14 inches you're talking about is really the difference between 100 bushel beans and 60 bushel beans, isn't it?
Yeah.
The amount of abortion that happens
during that time frame. And I mean, your cream of your crops coming from your
from the top,
on your top fill, but soybeans abort 50-60% of their flowers.
Even though that's known, that's a correct number, but a soybean plant, as a general rule, will put on more pods than what it can support. So that aborting occurs because of the fact the plant doesn't feel like there's enough nutrients or there's disease coming on. In other words, it shrinks to its environment. So what you're really saying, Ben, is make the environment as pleasant as possible, and as more pods will develop and create more yield, as opposed to the plant shrinking to the environment.
Correct.
So eliminate those stresses.
Yeah, eliminate stresses. So, and fungicides are a great way to increase yields, and we're seeing, and it's mainly because, I know some farmers will say, well, I tried fungicides, 5-10 years ago. Well, we have a different class of fungicides now. We have curatives and preventatives, and, back in the old benlate days, we didn't, it was a preventive, and now we have much better products.
Yep, and they have much better surfactants. They can get into the plant easier. We have different products that go with the fungicides to help get in the plant. So there's a lot of study being done on it, but I just wanted to hit home on the guys that what the difference between R3 and R4 is. And in our neck of the woods, it's getting pretty close. For the early May planted beans, or the late April planted beans, and your general 3-6 maturity, it's time to be out there and working on getting the fungicides put on.
Yeah, I remember going to a university meeting, and the university specialist said, you only need to know one thing when it comes to soybean fungicides: R3, 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 R3. He said it like 5 times. That's how critical it is.
Yep. So that's my little 2 cents for this week.
Turk, anything for you?
I'm just going to quickly mention the markets. We've seen the markets kind of take a big dive, especially the nearby contracts. And again, nothing to worry about there. That's just traders getting caught in a pinch and don't want to have to take delivery of this product. And so it's a chess game between the traders and the commercials. And so everything's pretty much switched over to the new crop contracts or the Septembers. And so don't worry about what's going on the nearby contracts. It really doesn't have any effect on the direction of the markets. Fundamentals haven't changed. We still have a tremendous dome of dry over the western corn belt. The people down south need rain. I mean, everybody needs rain right now. There's nobody that's excessively wet right now, and so stay tuned. Beans are made in August, and we're not very far away from August where we've got to have rain.
Yeah, and the Ukraine situation is extremely variable. I know they keep talking about trying to get some of that grain out of there, and going into a war zone, the insurance companies won't insure the cargo ships. They got mines in the Black Sea. There's not a U.S. fleet out there to protect them, and I'm a little bit apprehensive about that. That thing's all going to come out smelling like a rose.
The wheat market, we're just finishing up harvest. China put in the biggest wheat order ever recorded, and yet the markets still are kind of stale. So again, once this all settles down, things will.
Traders like movement,
Yeah, well, that's the only way they make money. Is something it has to move.
So they probably floored it, and now they'll move it back up again.
But the farmers in general have become disinterested in selling anything, and so basis is extremely strong in most areas. And so if you have an opportunity, I mean, we're hearing basis levels $1, $1.20 over.
Corn and soybeans.
Wheat not so.
Not so much on wheat, yeah. But don't take advantage of those when you get an opportunity if you've got some old crop to sell.
Yeah, we were looking at basis on wheat around here, and it's a negative 120 basis in certain spots
the
just
other
because
way.
they don't have the barges.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, wheat's a different story.
yeah.
Okay, well, that's good reports, and brings us to the couple jokes I have. All right, my uncle named his pups, his dogs, one Rolex and one Timex. They were his watchdogs. All right. Now, this one here you got to think about a little bit. Last night, someone committed the perfect crime. They broke into a hardware store and stole all the toilets. They sold every toilet. Police say they have nothing to go on.
Didn't have to think
Nothing
real
to
hard.
go on. Yeah, go to the bathroom on. Yeah. Okay, all right. Enough of that.
Worked hard this week, Joe.
Thank you again for tuning in, and we appreciate your business. Hope you and your family are safe and healthy. We'll see you next week. Take care.